Welcome to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. This podcast is dedicated to EAS employees of the U.S. Postal Service and members of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. So, pour yourself a cup of coffee and join us for today's episode. And now, here's your host, Robert Wakefield.
Good morning, Branch 32, and good morning, Naps family. Wherever you are listening, thank you so much for being a part of the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast presented by the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. I am your president and host of this show, Robert Wakefield. That's right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Got a great show lined up for you. So let's go ahead and pour that first cup. This January 29th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., the Nashville Post Office Credit Union is inviting you to do something powerful, and that's give the gift of life. Join us for our community blood drive and help ensure local hospitals have the resources that they need. Just one donation can make a life-changing difference for someone right here in Middle Tennessee. So stop by, roll up your sleeve, and be a part of something bigger than all of us. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. And for our first cup this morning, I wanted to bring on a good friend who's been on the program many times. And he's going to be talking about advisement rights today. So let's just bring him in right now. He is the immediate past president of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. Please welcome Brian Wagner. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robert. I love being a frequent flyer podcast speaker. Do I get a card punched for this?
You do.
And like so many, I get a free cup of coffee.
You get a cup of Joe. Yeah, it's great. I can't wait to see you at LTS so I can get that card to you. That's so funny. Well, it's great to have you on. It's great to have you on again. It's been a while since we've had you on, so I'm glad that you've agreed to be on with us again today.
Well, I'm always agreeing to be on, as always, the number one podcast in the country. So, in our hearts.
In our hearts. There you go.
That's right.
That is great. Well, Brian, I brought you on today because you and I have talked in the past, and we want to call this the Advisement series. We're going to start a series today that it talks about the advisement rights. So why don't you give us kind of a thumbnail sketch of what those three rights are, and then we'll get into the Kalkines rights later on.
Sure. Robert, one of the things members get called into in investigative interviews and OIG investigations. And what we're talking about here is OIG investigations, where when a member is called in, the OIG could give them really three types of rights. It's called Kalkine, which is where it's not criminal, but they have to participate in answering the questions, right? You have to cooperate in an investigation. Mm-hmm. And then there's a Garrity right, which it could lead to criminal charges. And there is some part where they have to participate and answer questions unless it leads to possibly criminal, they can incriminate themselves. And of course, the infamous Miranda rights, you have the right to remain silent when you're being arrested by the OIG. Right. And that's the other right. So I can tell you that going back to 2006, Ted Keating, our national president at the time, did receive a letter from the Office of the Inspector General about the different rights and the fact that these are what the rights of members have. And one of the things I can tell you is that with the OIG, they are very well trained to make sure that when they bring someone in for an investigation, that they ensure that they have a right to a representative. And we all have that right under ELM 651.2 under representation under the ELM. And that includes OIG investigations. So that's very important.
Sure. All right, so that's good. So those are the three. Is it Kalkines? Is that how you say that?
It's Kalkines.
Kalkines.
Yeah, Kalkines.
Right. Kalkines, and then you have the Garrity, and then you have the Miranda. So those are what we're going to do in this this little mini series here on the advisement rights. So let's go ahead and get started with the Kalkines rights. To explain what that is and talk about that a little bit.
Well, the Kalkines right is where you're called into an OIG investigation. It is not considered criminal. They will ask you questions. You have a right to have a representative. And the issue with the Kalkines is that they will give you like a form stating what your rights are. You know, and in these rights, it talks about this isn't criminal. It's more administrative. So if you were to say something that was that would get you in trouble criminally, you actually have what they call use immunity. They can't use it against you. Okay. But it's like anything in an OIG investigation or an investigative interview. You have to cooperate and answer the questions. Right. If you fail to cooperate, you could be disciplined for that. Okay. But in the Kalkines rights, it could lead to disciplinary charges up to and including removal. Okay. Now, the OIG doesn't do the removal part. They do the report, and then they would issue it to the manager, and then they would determine on whether or not they would go for removal. But what happens is you will be asked a number of specific questions, maybe concerning the performance of your duties with the post office. You actually have to answer the questions. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to use my Fifth Amendment rights not to incriminate myself." Right. Well, so you've got to answer them, correct? Right. Okay. Right. You have to answer them. And again, you could be subject to disciplinary action, including removal or dismissal from the post office, if you fail to respond truthfully and fully to the questions. I always say, don't lie in an I&I. Do not lie in an I&I. And an OIG investigator is the same thing. I'm going to get a T-shirt for that, with a cup of coffee below there. Right? Oh, there you go. Sure. But this is what the members need to understand. When they are called into an OIG investigation, they don't know what's going to happen yet, and then the OIG will have their OIG inspectors there, and they'll issue you your rights. You sign them. You're not signing your rights away. You're just saying that they've given you your rights, and you acknowledge them. But it also says that you can't be charged if you make any statements that's criminal. Okay. Right? That you violate it. That's why you have to participate. Right. In those investigations. So is there a signal? Let's say that they don't tell you that you're in Kalkines territory, if you will. Well, is there some kind of questions that you can kind of look for or signals that they may be entering to that territory? Well, sure. When you go into an OIG investigation, you can always ask, are you free to leave? Right? Mm-hmm. And if they say no, then you don't leave. Okay, so what does that mean? Am I under arrest, Miranda? And if you say, am I under arrest? And they say no, well, basically you can't leave because you have to participate. You have to cooperate in an investigation. Okay. And you're not under arrest. So basically that's an administrative investigation. I got you. Like I said, so you'll want to ask, are you free to leave? And then what we'll talk about in this series, when we get into Garrity and Miranda, what you should and should not do. Okay. So that's good stuff. Now, if I'm a NAPS representative and I'm in there with the EAS employee, what are some of the things that I need to advise the person that I'm representing? Well, like we always, when I give this training, you never go into an investigative interview or OIG investigation alone. Right. Right. It's the same process, whether it's an investigative interview with the post office or if it's an OIG investigation. Mm-hmm. You know what? You're going to ask what the charges are. You're going to be professional in your actions. You're going to answer questions truthfully. And if you don't recall, you're going to state you don't recall and ask for information that might help you remember. But do not lie in these investigations. Whether it's, again, an investigative interview with your boss or the OIG. Again, you want to make sure that you don't overtalk, You want to make sure when you're meeting with your NAPS rep prior that you have a code word so that if you're over talking, your NAPS rep can say a code word to make you stop talking.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
you need to confer outside.
That's a good idea.
My middle initial is J. So if Robert, you're my rep and I'm just rambling on, think I'm going to talk myself out of trouble when I'm talking myself into more trouble, you're going to say, Brian J. Wagner. And as soon as I hear that J, I should say, okay, Robert needs me to stop talking.
Right. That's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. That's really good.
Yes. I will give that credit to Jaime Elizondo, the one clap, Jaime is with the one clap. When I'm doing this training, this is always, this is a living training document, really. People have great ideas on how to represent member. And Jaime Elizondo came up with, told me about that when I was doing the training.
That's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. So the Kalkines rights are usually, they have to give it to you in writing, and you must answer the questions. Do I have those two things right?
Right. Well, and sometimes you'll want to ask, and they may not tell you. So you want to ask, am I under arrest? Can I leave? When those things are saying, no, you're not under arrest, but no, you can't leave, but you have to stay there and answer the questions. Again, it all comes down to the ELMS 665.15, cooperation in an investigation.
Right.
You want to make sure, and you also want to avoid lack of candor.
Oh, it's true.
Which means, you need to be have unreserved, honest, sincere expression and be forthright in your answers. If you're trying to evade questions, if you're trying to be, sneaky and trying to be vague, they could say you're not cooperating. Now you have lack of candor.
And that's an additional charge they could add to it. So that's not good either. Yeah. Right.
You have obedience to orders, to go to an investigation, and ELM 665.3, cooperation and investigation. 665.15 is you have to follow, direction of orders, obedience to orders, because you're called in. I'm not going. Well, depending on what the advisement rights you receive depends on what action you can take next.
Gotcha. Okay, so we got about a minute and a half left of this first cup. So let me ask you this question here. Let's just say that the OIG comes to your office and the person says, I want my NAPS rep, but they can't get a hold of their NAPS rep, and the OIG says, oh, we're just here to talk. What is your advice on that?
My advice is you have a right for representation. Always go on with a NAPS rep, because anything can lead to discipline. They just want to talk. Anything you say, and if you don't know what your rights are, can be used against you for disciplinary charges or including removal. Or if you make a statement of doing something criminal, you could be arrested.
Exactly.
So do not ask for your NAPS rep and wait for them to get a hold of your NAPS rep to go before you go in. And again, the OIG, and this is in the NAPS officer's training manual, the information I shared, the OTM, says the OIG has put in additional safeguards for employees. The OIG agents have been trained to comply with all reasonable requests for union and management representation.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you, most likely when the OIG is calling you in, they pretty much have their case in hand.
Right.
They pretty much know where they're going with this.
Okay.
They're just trying to maybe confirm with the person they're investigating, what they did. So that's why the use immunity, where you have to answer the questions. You may not be arrested, or it may not be criminal, but because you're given use immunity, you have to answer the questions, which could then still lead to discipline up to and including removal.
Okay. All right. So that's the Kalkines rights. These are the advisement rights. It's going to be a 3-part series here on the Saturday Cup of Joe. Thank you so much Brian for being on the program today. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate being on.
All right.
Is there like an ice cream flavor of the day you want yet? I mean, I'm all ready to go. I've been doing research. Actually, I've been doing a lot of eating.
I tell you what, let's do. Let's do the flavor of the week in our second cup. What do you say?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So thanks so much for listening to the first cup. It's now time for us to pour our second cup. On January 29th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., The Nashville Post Office Credit Union is opening its doors for something that truly matters, our community blood drive. When you donate, you're not just giving blood, you're giving time, strength, and hope to someone who needs it most. It's one of the simplest ways to make a real impact right here at home. So come on out, bring a friend, and help us lift up Middle Tennessee together. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. And for our second cup today, we have Brian Wagner, a holdover from the first cup.
Well, that's why I went to get my second cup of coffee.
Oh, good. I'm glad you did. So tell me, in our second cup today, I want to talk a little bit about your boot camp for communication. That's kind of a new thing that you're introducing. So give us a thumbnail sketch of what that's about.
Well, Robert, thanks a lot for asking about this. I do Zoom into training for branches on various topics of representation, leadership, branch officer duties and responsibilities. And one of the things I've always worked on is making sure our members have an opportunity for career development. Maybe they want to get promoted. Mm-hmm. And in my Rotary, I know of a professional communication leadership coach. Her name is Melissa Ensminger, and I'm working with her to do what we call communication boot camp for interviewing skills.
Okay.
Which means she's put together a 3-part series. It's three 90-minute Zoom sessions that we have scheduled on February 3rd, 4th, and 5th, a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time, 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time. And what she's doing is providing people resources and how to do those interviews, those questions of, I wish I would have said something differently. I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have known how to say something else. Be confident in your interview process.
That's awesome.
So she's a communication coach. Now there is a fee for this. It's $150, but that's for 3 sessions of 90 minutes. Plus she's going to provide a 1-hour follow-up group practice lab for the attendees. Now this is limited to 16 people. Okay. And I emailed out to the branches. There is a QR code to register if somebody's interested. Now again, it is going to be on February 3rd, 4th, and 5th, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. If anyone wants to register, they can contact you, Robert, or they can contact me at brian4naps@aol.com. Okay. So that's BRIAN, the number 4, NAPS at AOL.com. And I can send them information. This is something I'm working on for the future. This is our first boot camp. But again, this is to help members get those communication and interview skills down so they can get that next EAS promotion.
I think that's fantastic. And it's way overdue, I think, don't you?
This is something I've always looked at. I know NAPS headquarters is working on a NAPS training academy. I've been asked to be part of that for doing KSAs. But it's great to have your KSAs, but once you get selected for the interview, a lot of people say, what do I say? Am I confident? I should have said that differently.
Right.
What Melissa does, she's the professional. She's the one. She's the professor. She actually was taught in college. She knows this. She actually does this for politicians, executives at companies, and I work with her. I'm with her in Rotary. We're Rotary members, and this is a small little what we call service above self, giving back. There is a cost because there's always a little cost, but we're trying to keep it reasonable.
Sure.
And I think it's an investment in somebody's EAS career.
I love it. Well, let me tell you, before we go, that's a great idea. And so you've got the email address. It's Brian, the number 4, naps at AOL.com, or you can contact Saturday Cup of Joe podcast, and we'll get you that information as well. So, as promised, go ahead and give us the ice cream flavor of the week.
Well, one of the things I found new was the black raspberry chocolate chip.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
A little bit of twist in there. I like the chocolate chip. I like that black red. Man, I'll tell you what. That's an extra 2 pounds on my body.
Well, thank you. So, yeah, exactly right. Brian, thanks so much for being with us on the first and the second cup of this episode. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate being with you. Have a good day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. Please note that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Robert Wakefield and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. We welcome your questions and comments, so send those to SaturdayCupOfJoe@gmail.com.